All right, we on. This is Thabo Makama, and then we're live now. We on T-junction, and today I'm hosting. I call him the property champion, the Township property champion, Jason. We're going to be interviewing Jason McCormick, CEO of JSE listed Exemplar REITail, which is a market-leading development organization. They are owners, managers of township and rural shopping centers across South Africa. And I think, in my view, they are amongst the best in town that have done so much for this market of township economy and growing the retail space in terms of building workable solutions that are going to house and help many businesses and reaching an economy in the business. And I think one of the things that really is outstanding for me is just some of the information that is brought out there by those that know better than us. And I took a quote from a conversation that Jason was having with one of the interviews that he's done. So he was laughing earlier on when I met up with him, and I said to him, these are some of the things that you said. So it's just very interesting to see how the conversation can grow. So when we're looking at this, look at some of the things that have been said there. 150 billion goes through spaza shops, 90 billion or so goes through the food sector, and approximately 10 billion goes through the hair care sector each year. And all of these is spaces where we find ourselves as organizations and many individual, township-based businesses that are doing it. So it's very interesting to then get to see that all of these things are really highlighted in how one can be able to grow the business and make it work. So Jason, welcome, and thank you very much for making time.
Having me, yeah.
Cool. So I think the first question is really to get to know you, to get to know who's Jason McCormick. I think I've gotten to like what you're doing, and the name has become familiar in most of the circles that, when one talks about property and one talks about township economy, your name pops up. When one talks about how the empowerment, conversation needs to happen post-riots and a whole lot of things. But tell us a little bit about yourself and, who are you, and, how did you come about into this particular industry?
Long story. Again, I'm Jason McCormick. I'm the CEO of Exemplar REITail. I'm also the managing director of McCormick Property Development, which kind of gives a bit of the history as to how I got to be where I am today. We are 40 years old this year as McCormick Property Development. Yeah. And it was a company started by my father.
Nice.
And so that's how I came into it, and there's a lot more I can speak on that. Back to Jason. I'm 44 years old, father of two, married, and been doing this all my life. Wow. So basically grew up in Pretoria, went to high school down in KZN, university in the Western Cape, came back, did almost a full gap year, learned more than I probably did in 4 years at varsity than I did in my gap year.
Sure.
Had to struggle to try and make ends meet in Europe, and then came back and joined my father 20 plus years ago. In McCormick Property Development, and was made managing director in 2011, and listed Exemplar REITail on the JSE with then 20 shopping centers. And we're the only pure township retail focused retail on the JSE. It's all we do. As a company, we've done in excess of 80 developments in the 40 years that we've been in business, and it's all that we've done. We've done 80 developments.
Wow.
Yeah. They included one for the was it KwaZulu Finance Corporation. We did an office block, and we did a residential development in Mozambique. Otherwise, everything has been retail. So it's all we know.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, 100 more. It's almost all we know.
But it seems to be something that it's not only you and your dad doing in the family. The entire family has really adopted into this property space, and you guys have really grown this to become a very strong McCormick present thing.
Yeah, it was founded by my father and my mother
Nice.
in the early days. My mum was the secretary and my dad was everything else. And from that, as the business grew, particularly in the early rural developments, we really got a sense of the impact, the social impact it was having. And from that, it was it's a very easy business to get sucked into when you see the socioeconomic benefit that these areas were getting, the uplift, just the joy in people's faces on an opening day. I'll never forget it. Guyani Plaza, 1987, was the day that it changed my life, because I just saw the massive impact in the old Gazankulu homeland, it was called at the time. And I think I was 8 or 9 at the time, and
many people were not born. I'm not going to look at them, and I'm not even going to say a lot.
But and that's how we ended up. We all got sucked into the business because it was just, the business was growing and it was doing great things along the way. So it was easy to be aligned and believe in the story.
Nice.
And I suppose that's one of the great things that's benefited us to this day is all of this wouldn't be possible without the team that we've got, along for the ride with us. We've got a singular vision, a single purpose. We all love what we do because we see the incredible impact that it has working with the communities that we do. And it's important to know that the majority of the local communities that we develop in partnership with. So they've got equity schemes in the development. We hold hands with them. We've got a local first dictum. So we really try and stimulate the local economies where we're developing. And with all of that positivity that is evident when you open a new shopping center and go back there a year, 2, 3 years later, and you see the ancillary development that it's brought along. We've got a great team that we're working with that are all also caught up. So the family's grown. We're well over 100 people now.
And not only is the family growing, I saw even you're expanding the office space and very futuristic. But we're going to touch on that. I don't want to sure. Spoiler alert. I don't want to get into that and really spoil it. But now, Jason, tell me a little bit more about your life as a businessman, right? You come into a family of an entrepreneur, mom and dad working into a business. Someone could have said, look, this is not for me. I don't want to be almost told this is my way, this is where I'm going to go. How do you start shaping your thinking more into a business person?
For me, it was very easy. Very fortunate. We've got a very tight-knit family, and working side by side with my dad. I got to learn in the University of Life so much more than I would have, otherwise have done. So in terms of, we've always been taught to tread the moral high ground. The road is long, and your reputation is never worth one slip up. 40 years down the line, we still stick true to our dictum. Our word is our bond, and we try to tread the moral high ground as much as we can, which kind of be exemplar.
It's actually, I asked myself, where does that name come from? Exemplar. Yeah, because it for me is like, we want to be exemplary.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah,
exactly.
Like, does that come from there?
Yeah, 100%. So we were in the midst of our listing process, the pre-listing process in late 2017. We were supposed to list in April, and then we ended up listing in June. The listing process is quite arduous.
But isn't that everyone's dream that we want to go and get listed?
No ways. Anyway, but anyway, be that as it may. So we were thinking up different names for it, and it was at the time when the Steinhoff scandal came out, and then you had Resilient Gate, and the property market crashed, and it was something that we've always held ourselves up to be, be the shining light, be the beacon, be the moral compass. And at the time, it was something that just struck true with us that, in this time of turmoil and lack of trust, we could be this company that's always been what we are. We've just never been listed before.
You always want to stand out. I mean, I must say that as an individual, I've experienced you as someone who's just very non-conventional, but very hard on the moral high ground. You always keep up to your very high standards and doing what is right is is consistently there and you want to push for.
No, as I said, my dad said there's nothing more valuable than your reputation.
Nice.
And there is nothing more. And so, and all it takes is one even half slip to ruin all of that, all the hard work, all the dreams.
That's fantastic. Fantastic. So I just want to highlight, this is the Thabo Makama for T-junction. I know that we lost our initial connection on Twitter Spaces, but I see that we've had individuals joining on YouTube Live, and I see you. Welcome and thank you very much for joining us. I'm with Jason McCormick from Exemplar REITail property organization, and I think what you're going to find out today is really the conversation of property, the opportunity, and just business in general, some fundamentals. We've already touched on the moral side of things. We already touched on how it's become a generational business from your own organization. So some of our listeners that really go into this particular space, they get to understand the fact that, there are so many things, untold rules that we always talk about on T-junction, to say there could be formal schools for MBA, but there's no school for entrepreneurship, right? There's no school for businessmen. There's no school for things that you're going to learn that no one is going to teach you. You're going to have to get burned. You're going to have to do something about it, right? But in learning in the property space, it's always, people talk about rich dad, poor dad, and say, no, you have to invest in property. You have to invest in things that are long-term. Some of the things are just untold. In your view, the property business is not easy, but to flourish, what makes your business constantly achieve its goals, and being able to build such big assets and continue to go from one leap to another without getting, too technical about it, because, some of the things can be technical, but what are some fundamentals that one can think about in really building your business in the property space?
I think dedication, drive, attention to detail. We've already spoken about the sense of purpose, with what we're doing in the communities that we're working with and bringing what we do. There's a lot on the line, and it's an incredibly focused business. The retail is detail, they always say. For me, it's the most exciting portion of property, sector of the property market, because it is complicated. It's, you've got consumers' wants, desires, aspirations, needs, and then you've got various retailers that you've got to mix in a melting pot, and I hope you cook the cake right. For what the community wants. But for me, it's a big part of the fun of it is working with the community and making sure that you deliver something that everyone's proud of. So what sets us apart from everyone else? I don't know. I'm not looking over my shoulder, looking at everyone else. so
you're running your own race.
100%. You know what? We're in a great space. We are unique in the way that we do things. We hold hands a lot more frequently with people, I think, than a lot of other people would have. And to the extent that there's been some significant black shareholding in the majority of all our malls. We've built a lot along the way.
So just break down that a little bit. When you're saying majority black shareholders, you find black business partners, communities.
So they've got major shares in it.
Okay.
Not particularly the majority shareholders.
But
up
major
to
share
50, up to 60% in Diepkloof and Soweto.
Wow.
Whereas in a lot of our others, up to 50%, 30%. Which we'll then fund. So that's fantastic. That's historically been the model that we.
Because being honest, someone would think, these white guys are just coming into the township 100%. And taking away. And I've seen how vocal you become around the working together to actually make things happen. You were on the ground in the eve of the riots and post the riots, and doing a whole lot of things. And we'll talk about some of the things that you do in the township. But in looking at some of the technical knowledge that you have in your team, what are some of the critical things that you make sure you don't go without as you go into some of the projects, the type of people that you want to always work with, and the type of communities? What are some of the challenges that you face in communities? You and I were just talking about another community which is very difficult to get into, but it's fundamentals of really doing something as an entrepreneur. I think as a businessman, what are some of the things that you do as part of your groundwork to get buy-in and to build on the assets?
No, listen, at the end of the day, it's the community's asset. So if we don't have buy-in from the community, we're not coming, plain and simple.
Sure.
Because if the community is against it, then why are you trying to push the elephant uphill? And you're only going to have trouble going forward. Fortunately, we've worked well with people. We don't do advertising, so all of our stuff comes through word of mouth, generally speaking, through people that we've worked with.
Sure.
So we get good references from people. We know. Just at the end of the day, it's trust. It's a lot of it. It's a lot of trust. We're old school in our way. We're a family business, even though Exemplar is very corporate. So, we've got in-house counsel and everything else. We do everything by the book. Everything is 1000% by the book.
Sure.
But there's still a lot of there's still a lot of groupthink. There's huge entrepreneurial spirit in the business, which would part of what makes it as fun as it is, to be developing, even in times like this, when the chips are down. A lot of the financial analysts say to me, "Are you not worried? Eskom's failing, water is failing, sewage is failing." And I was like, for 40 years we've been developing in the homelands, in the rural areas that didn't have. They had Eskom, but they didn't have water. They didn't have sanitation.
Sure.
So we're proficient in swimming upstream, I think, and have managed to create a business out of it. And I think it's hard work and dedication. There's months that go by we've been working 16, 18-hour days. Just week in, week out, week in, week out. A lot of risk. Obviously, property there is a lot of risk, and there's a long timeline on it. But it's a vibrant space. So for you entrepreneurs out there, there's the peri-urban townships. The rural urban migration is huge. So the backyard Amarumi is becoming huge business.
Oh man!
And all you need to do. My dad started the business with one shop, a single line shop in Mokwadi. It's now called in Dedenron. And that's all you need is a single room, and then a second room, and then that's how you start.
It's just like
and the reality is, for your listeners, for your people, property is a long-term game. It is capital intensive, and you have to be patient. But go to the right areas. Go to where there's demand, where there's population growth, economic growth.
So you touched on a very important part of the conversation. I mean, one of the things that some of the guys have sent as questions was that, the property business can be unforgiving in terms of going in and investing and not getting the return, or maybe waiting too long, right? What has been some of your key learnings in terms of the decisions that you've made as investment decisions in terms of the size and time that a person should be looking at in going into a commercial deal?
We're going to start building Leratong City in June. We've been on that project since 2008.
What? Like 2008?
Yeah. So when we did Market Plaza with the Bakaka Market outside Zanin, I think my dad had been working 20 years on that site. So, but obviously it gets to a point. So, in rural stuff, it takes about doing what we're doing on the scale that we're doing about between 5 and 7 years to get through the whole community process, to get all the rights, to get everything in place, the services, and everything. So it's certainly not a quick fix.
Yes,
it's
scary.
So it does. No, listen, and it can take time, and communities do put pressure on government to help speed up the process.
Nice.
Because obviously we find often that there's just a lot of processes that need to be followed, and sometimes they take longer than the communities are certainly willing to wait. So,
and how big do you still want to build your business as Exemplar REITail? I can tell you that traveling, going to different townships and different rural areas, the need is still great. I can surely say that there is still potential, particularly you looking at Eastern Cape as one of the key areas. I was like, these guys are thinking, very wild. Eastern Cape.
No, listen, I love the rural areas.
Yeah.
I'm often quoted as saying it's my favorite place to develop. That's where we have the biggest social economic impact.
Yes.
Is when we take, the town all the way into the rural areas by taking. And I love the Eastern Cape. It smacks back to my roots, my history of rural retail. Is it's a developed market, but it's an unsophisticated market in the way that it's been developed. And when we went to Flagstaff, so we've now got 4 assets currently in the Eastern Cape, and we'll start. We programmed to start at the end of this month in Indutra, which should be our fifth asset in the Eastern Cape. But when we went to Flagstaff, people were getting their grants in the rain. It just terrible conditions. We've kind of turned the town on its head, because now everyone can queue indoors for their grants. Suddenly everyone else in town is having to clean up, how they were looking after the pensioners, the Gors, and Mkulus. And it's just nice to have that kind of knock-on effect. But so listen, we're doing a lot of rural up in Limpopo as well. And we all enjoy doing the rural stuff. 14,000 square meters, single anchor, generally speaking, although Bawani's double anchor, and the one in Idutra is also double grocery anchored.
Sure. Yeah. That's fantastic. I mean, it's such a growth for Black entrepreneurs. And I mean, you've worked with the likes of Drip and Batu in your last conversation.
No. I've only worked with Theo on.
Oh, with Theo. Okay.
Only on Tris. He hasn't.
Tris.
We don't have a store of his yet.
Okay. But then I've seen.
I'm working on it.
All right. Okay. But I see Tris is really one of the initiatives that you run, which is the Township Retail Investment Summit.
No, 100%.
Which in its founding and in its core is to have conversation around how to make the township more inclusive and for business people, particularly those that are listening today. And if you're joining us for the first time, this is Thabo Makama on T-junction. We're really happy to have you. And I'm talking to Jason McCormick, who is from Exemplar REITail. And we're talking about entrepreneurship in the property space and what are some of the opportunities that exist, Is it something that one can go into on a quick basis? Is it something that one can build on? How long does it take? All of these fundamental learnings and stuff that we want to bring on to this platform so that you can get to understand what is it and what does it take. So tell us a little bit about Tris. How did you come about it? And in looking at you choosing the township commercial property space and malls, not a lot of people go into the township. I mean, there's many who say there's a risk. There's so many things. But yet we see your malls popping up in townships, the very same place that many individuals are running away from. But yet when they talk about statistics, others have claimed there's 900 billion in the township. Others are saying there's 500, there's 250 billion in terms of value that comes out of the township. And when you look at the growth aspirations of retailers, many retailers have made billions out of townships. What role does your organization and Tris, play in terms of making sure those dreams actually come to life?
100%. I think, Tris was a byproduct of the organization and organizational thinking that existed at the time. So I think in the 1 and 2, the founding kind of principles of the two are very similar that we need. And from my earliest days in the industry, I've bemoaned the over concentration of retail in South Africa. 4 major supermarkets. For us, 5 major, Woolworths is coming at 6 major fashion chains. 4 major banks now with Capitec, 5 major banks with a few guys coming up. It makes it very difficult for new entrants coming in. It makes it difficult for me as a shopping center developer. Because I've only got a few doors to knock on. And so the balance of power is not in my favor. So what we're trying to do is through the organization, through our Kazi collab, try and see how we can get a lot of these township entrepreneurs, how we can stimulate them, mentor them, and get them up to running their own brands. Very much in the way that Lekau and Theo have done with Drip and Batu on their own accord.
Okay.
But our dream is to create the next 10, 20 of them.
Sure.
See if we uncover them wherever we can, because we've got the platforms, we've got the space to let them shine. And that's one of the exciting things is we've got all these retail platforms.
Yeah.
We haven't even really scratched the surface on how we can use those platforms to create positive change
So
on
would
an
you say-
ongoing basis in the township.
Would you say that there's a lot of opportunity for guys that can multiply? Some people that own
Who can
products
scale up.
who can scale up
100%.
in your respective spaces.
No, listen, I think one of the founding principles that my father had when he started, the Mlungus didn't come to the areas he was taking retailers to. So he would have a box or a score supermarket, and then a smattering of Pep, and then he would have local black business.
Yeah.
So although unfortunately the farmers, the local pharmacist, the local doctor don't do as well anymore as they did in the old days, which is why we're looking at how do you take people that have got great products, and we've got a number of them in the Tembisa Kasi collab who do incredible work and are definitely scalable.
Now tell me a little bit about that, because I saw it's just some amazing work that you guys are doing in the collab.
I'm not doing. We just gave them the space. That's all.
Oh, so it's a different organization that's doing it, but in your
no.
spaces.
So we found Township entrepreneurs. We brought them together into that space. So that's their platform. So they pay for lights and water. That's all. They don't pay rent. We set them up, and then they and it's the most prominent shop in the mall. Basically, it's on the busiest entrance.
Yeah.
And a number of those brands are just flying. They're going from strength to strength. I'm so proud of how they're doing.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to do. Is we're trying to build Township brands to give Mr. Price a run for their money.
No, that is fantastic. Yeah. So now tell me, is there future business that you envisage will come out of the Township? Probably in vertical businesses that really pop out of this. We've got a lot of entrepreneurs that are joining us today, and I think they have a lot of questions as well that they're asking. I'll check now what the questions are, but I think in bulk, the biggest question that most of the guys have is that
where are
the opportunities? There's a mall, it's a building, there's property, there's vertical business that come out of it. Where are the business opportunities? And I'm going to reach out here to check a little bit of this.
No, listen, I think in telecoms data, getting cheaper data out into the communities, definitely an opportunity. Last mile is definitely an opportunity that exists.
Let me see. There's questions here. Okay. Are you guys getting audio? Okay, fine. Let me see. Says you've got a stunning track record working in communities. Vatiswa says Eastern Cape, please. I love hearing that. Demand is rife there. It will be a win-win.
We're in Eastern Cape.
Where about? Yeah. So Vatiswa, tell us where about in the Eastern Cape. So what opportunities? So I see someone is asking about opportunities for outdoor.
Outdoor, yeah.
So what opportunities exist there from an outdoor perspective?
Yeah, so there's multiple. We've actually just hired a new guy to handle all our outdoor, all our non-GLA stuff. Okay. He's currently on a honeymoon or up in the Maldives or something, and he's just joined us.
Yeah.
So we're looking at all these other platforms. And just leveraging the space. So there are huge opportunities if you look more particularly for out of home and even in mall advertising. Our busier malls will do 1.3 to 1.5 million pairs of feet a month.
What?
So it's a lot of sets of eyes reading
what busy.
What advert. Yeah, 100%. Average is about 400 to 650, I would say. But our urban malls and Paula Mall.
Yeah.
Those do over 1 million pairs of feet a month. So for out of home, it's a lot of
crazy.
It's mall advertising. There is a lot of opportunity. We haven't tapped it fully yet. There's no doubt about that. Yeah. But as I said to you earlier before this, we're too busy building shopping centers.
Yeah, no, I've seen you running around, and I've seen you in different places at a time. So I think one of the things that I have as a question that has always gone into my mind is the fact that you always embrace the the way business is run. You one guy that I found. You embrace diversity of thoughts. You make time for people, and you always open up for brand new ideas. Isn't that a bit overwhelming for you? Don't you find yourself running out of time and
No.
and not being able to actually get to the most important things?
Listen, the most important things are family
Yeah.
to me, and there's no, although I don't get as much time as I often would like,
Yeah.
certainly in the I've become very good at prioritizing the time that I do have, and
Nice.
when we're working, we're working flat out. And as I've alluded to before, we've got a great energy in our team. We've got a great team that's purpose driven in what we're doing, and it's just we're in a great space to be in. Even though that they're clapping us on the interest rate and they're making it very difficult for fixed capital investment at the moment because it is very expensive where the rates are now.
Sure.
But
I don't know where that 50 basis points came from.
Listen, it caught us all by surprise. We saw it in the rand.
Dude, I don't understand who Kaiser was drinking with, but anyway, we won't even go there.
Let's hope it's at the top now, and we'll start seeing it easing. Although what we read in America seems fairly hawkish, so we'll see where it goes.
No, so in asking that question, I really want to tap into your business leader, hat, in that many entrepreneurs find themselves overwhelmed with taking care of the important things such as family and really working out a solution around how do I prioritize this? How do I deprioritize certain things in the space? What role would you say your team plays in making your life a little bit easier in terms of planning, execution, and also growth in this particular instance? Because some of the entrepreneurs that we have on the platform, they're going in, they're scaling up. Some of them are just one-man shows. I think the guy who's asking about the outdoor advertising, he works with a small team, Kingsley. I happen to know Kingsley, and I see online Neo Mafolo. Neo works with a group of individuals in the NGO space. So she does a lot of work for women and stuff like that. So these are some of the business leaders that in their own right, they need to potentially work on most important things. What are some of the key rules that you have when it comes to that in working with your team in making your life a bit simpler?
So we've grown quite quickly since in the last 5-6 years since, and then through the listing. So certainly, and through that listing process, we've had to corporatize a lot more. So there's a lot more directly responsible people. Everyone knows their box. But before that, we were all doing everything. We were very seat to the pants, very entrepreneurial, family business. I've been juggling so many balls my whole life, my whole business life up in the air. And I've often said that it was waitering. When I was a student, I worked 4 years as a waiter.
Sure.
And it was that process of understanding, remembering you still had dessert to go out here. In table 2, needs to be cleared. This one wants the sparkling water. And
you make a mental note of
100%. In that way, I learned to program the ordering in my mind. I suddenly knew that I've got 6, 7, 8 developments out with at various stages, who needs what when. And so that certainly helped me a hell of a lot. But then, as I say, as we got more corporate, we've had to write rules and regulations, and everyone knows exactly what box needs to be ticked. I've got an incredible PA who does a lot, and an even more incredible wife. So they keep my life in check. It is fairly hectic with a lot on the go all the time. Sure. But it's good to have good people around me, and just coming further back into, as you scale up, you have to have these systems in place, because you can't do everything yourself, and that's very important. You need to have trusted people you can trust, and you need to have clear structure and guidelines as to what are the parameters, because that person needs to operate. You can't manage a manager. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, if you're going to have someone else and you're growing your business, you need to have a person that you can trust, and they need to know what their objectives, what their parameters are, what's expected of them, and where they can't step. And then you can go ahead and grow your business without having to worry about, every second of what's happening over there.
Sure. You don't have to always look over your shoulder and think, are these people doing what they're supposed to be doing?
Listen, for me, it's amazing to have watched young guys grow in the business and come and bring me back work that I can see they've got cooked. They've been thinking, they've redesigned shopping centers to cut out the cost. Wow. It's a big part of what we're doing is cost management, before we even on plans to take out all the unnecessary costs.
Sure.
And it's just great to see our guys grow in an environment like that.
Sure. So do you have a view of plus minus how many businesses have been empowered through the Exemplar network, black businesses?
So 80 developments. We've got 31 developments at the moment. We've got about 2,000 tenants. I would say 10% of those tenants are historically disadvantaged black tenants, but it used to be a lot higher.
Oh,
remember I said to you in the early days, my dad had to have up to 30%. But his target was always to get 15% of the tenants paying 10% of the rental. So they were always being subsidized by the nationals.
Nice.
Always a lot smaller space as well, so that the costs were more manageable. But can we be doing more? Certainly, I think we could be doing a lot more. There's a lot of businesses that we've seen come and fail that had good ideas but just didn't have the wherewithal to hold it together.
So, do you think that particular gap that exists then with those high failure rate, such structures as that incubator would actually play a very big role? Do you give any advice to the incubator?
That's why I was asking you, is why is this here, not in the township?
I wish I could replicate my space into different spaces.
Come give training out there.
No, definitely. It's some of the things that we want to focus on. We do help some of the businesses in our space. For instance, we work with one corporate and developing SMEs as part of our DNA. But the biggest challenge that we find, right, is the fact that when we go out to go and do development of SMEs in the township, is not having those structures that are existing. But I like what you're doing there, because the space that is dedicated to those entrepreneurs, it makes it easy for people like us who are business coaches and who are developers of entrepreneurs who can go into that space. And that is why, for me, township commercial property is something that is overdue. I grew up in the township. We grew up having to see one mall in Boputatswana. When you go to Mabopane City. What do you call it? Yeah.
Central City.
In Central City. Yeah. So we grew up now seeing Central City as the, biggest shopping center of life. Now, all of a sudden, I go home, I see Plaza here, Plaza 2, Plaza 3, Plaza 4. I see so many retail spaces. And I look at the population is multiplying. People from Limpopo have gone into the townships, and people coming from other, spaces. So in creating business ecosystems, right, what sort of thinking cap should people who come from townships, who are budding entrepreneurs, and I think it was a big challenge when you say, why are you here and not doing the same in the township? I was like, boy, did he just ask that? No. But it's a big ask, right?
Yeah.
What sort of thinking cap should we be wearing as business entrepreneurs that are based in the suburbs, based in places like this, in order for us to go and plow back and go and start working in the townships? What sort of mindset, or what should we be doing?
Yes, I don't think I fully understand.
So people like us, there's people like you who are doing property development in the townships. How can we bring our heads together to actually make a high impact in the township? What should we be doing?
We as who?
Black people and developers.
Yeah, 100. You should be doing more than just going back for a victory lap. It's for certain. No, listen. There's
as entrepreneurs, more than being black, for me, I think it's any entrepreneur who wants to go back into doing more.
Listen,
where there's establishments.
The townships are very cash generative businesses. There's a lot of free cash flowing around in the townships. So in Ekorka and all these guys have done well on card payments, but listen, there's what should you be doing? There's so much to be done, and it depends on what you want to get involved in. The townships are such rural, such vibrant spaces. There's such an amazing energy in there. People are resilient. And I always laugh when I go to a dinner party and these Mlungus are saying, we've got the roads are falling apart. They've got such bad potholes. I said, well, you must go into Mamelodi. Go and look what the people in the townships have to deal with. But they're resilient, and there are businesses that are thriving. And it's for me. So we did our second collab in Mamelodi, and some amazing brands there. Third one, we're going to roll it out in Edendale, and hopefully we'll have one in every area that can sustain one, that we've got enough creatives from that local area, because that's one thing I haven't mentioned. One of the, I think, stroke of brilliance that my dad had in the early days was his very strictly local first policy. So we look at a big part of any mall development is involved in working with the community, making sure that it's people from the local areas, that the people that will shop, that are deemed to be local, or people that can shop at that development. And we must then evenly source employment from all the various wards, that's in itself is a business in itself.
Sure.
But what do you have for local entrepreneurs? Patrick Moraka was a guy who approached us when we did Tembisa Plaza, Andrew Mapeto Drive, in Tembisa, would have been the early 2000s, and he wanted a car wash. But he was pushy, but we liked the guy, and he ended up winning the contract to clean them all. And he went from there. He went on to 5-6 malls. He then became our CLO during our Mall of Tembisa. It was our biggest ever development. We did that during lockdown. Opened in 2020.
Crazy stuff.
And I now believe he's doing with his brand in Powerpoint, doing other liaison work for other people. And that was just through a guy that had the passion. And he started out, he wanted to wash cars. He ended up washing shopping centers. And now got his own fully fledged business on the side, doing really well. And so there's a lot of opportunities. You've got to find where they are. And there are a lot of opportunities from, one of the guys, head of digital, Bongani's head of digital at Exemplar. He joined us. He was an intern. He joined us from Tembisa. And he was telling me how he started out making makwenya and then selling his uncle's mohod. And his pricing strategies and that's how I used to hustle. He was a student, but he was grafting.
Was hustling and grafting.
And that's at the end of the day, you can never stop hustling. You can never stop trying. You can never stop pushing. There's an old saying: you can't catch a fish if your line's not in the water. Make sure you've got lots of lines in the water. Keep pushing.
Fantastic. And you men with green fingers, some of the one of the things I actually dug out in terms of what you are doing. All right, is it fine? So some of the things that you're doing around the green space. I attended one of the TRIS sessions, and someone was talking about they do mall planting and stuff, hydroponic.
And she was telling me I'm wasting water in my market garden down at the bottom there. I'm very proud of that. That's Seokula cooperative. There were people that were farming adjacent to the mall before we built it in Tembisa. And we've set up a couple of hectares for them that they're farming very successfully at the moment. And listen, urban agriculture for me is something that's got huge potential. There's we've got to encourage more people to grow their own food. There's no doubt about it. We've got great soils, and for the past couple of years we've had good rainfall. Going forward, let's see what El Nino brings. But certainly, there is huge potential. We come from an agrarian background, all of us.
Is it?
Myself, yes. I come from a farm, but all of us. And
in some way,
100%. And there's a lot more to be done. I was talking about the one that we're doing now at Chakuma. The development will open in September, but we'll open that in September, and that's next to the one of the biggest fruit and veggie markets I've seen.
Sure.
So I'm looking forward to
we're talking about that and the potential in that particular
So
it's amazing stuff.
We're not just doing that. We're doing a fodder. We're doing a pilot fodder project, which will hopefully then roll out to other communities to provide fodder for livestock. Again, using wastewater,
recycled water
from the mall to grow the animal feed. So lots of small exciting things.
That's
on
fantastic.
The side,
I mean, one of my guests last time, in fact, the last guest that we had was Chief Director of the Gauteng agriculture and forestry. And he
Okay,
was
yeah.
saying that they're looking to see more spaces where they can do aquaponics.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think it's
But that you
probably
can do
somebody-
anywhere.
You can do anywhere, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So they've got a project they're doing at one of the Fourways malls, and it's one project that is also growing. So it looks like malls themselves are now becoming spaces for alternative,
Especially if they've got a lot of space for hydroponics.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that there's big potential. Now, tell me a little bit. Many businesses, and I think there's more questions that are there. Oh, the person says I'm from Tata, a property professional. For many years, you just have to go to town by month end, and the neighboring towns,
Kumbu,
Tsolo, Mount Frey, Dutwa, Mkanduli, and all of that.
But see what's it? I can't see that.
Yeah, I think it's
yeah. So we actually opened in Mount Frey now called Kwabaka. We opened there at the end of last year. We'll start hopefully within a month in Dutwa. Yeah, we're still working on something in Mthatha, but no, I haven't been to. We don't have anything planned for the other ones.
There's also Whittlesea. If you see that one at the top there, Mnetisi says that interesting. Where's Whittlesea, especially for a new brand promised given our rich agriculture potential. So Whittlesea, where's Whittlesea is also out in the the Eastern Cape.
Yeah, I'd have to have a look.
Yeah. So another question that is there, which I see, is around recycling. So are there opportunities in relation to collection of waste, recyclable material at your malls?
Listen, I think where we're going with our waste policy is zero to landfill as soon as we can. So we've got not just pilot, we've got quite advanced composting facilities now, and working with now breaking down the full suite of organics down into feedstock, then that would go back into the market gardens and everything else.
So almost you want to create a full circle of
circular economy
ecosystem.
Yeah, 100%. And then and that's what we're doing in Tembisa with the farmers at the mall of Tembisa. They're providing the vegetables for the restaurant at Mazwani's Imbiza, she's in Yama.
Yeah.
So it's literally
beautiful. I must say your architectural designs of Tembisa Mall is just
they
amazing.
Came out nicely. Yeah.
It's amazing where she sits and that escarpment. I mean, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Yeah, I see that's let me see, small town bills, groceries. Okay, someone commenting around. There's a lot that is happening during month end and
listen, month end grant time. That's a problem we need to deal with. It is big. It's a problem. People are grossly inconvenienced having to queue for as long as they have to queue. So it is. I see it as a problem because people are spending an inordinate amount of their day having to wait to get money, and.
There could be other ways.
And retail is the private sector is answering the call. Now you're having, your supermarkets are able to work with the grants, and the more retailers that we can get to disperse it,
become merchants.
Become merchants, the better, because then we can at least spread that waiting time. People aren't having to stand in the sun for as long as they're having to currently.
Sure. And Soshanguve, Pretoria, Mabopane, somebody says, I see that you're doing. What any other mall developments in the Pretoria, Soshanguve, Mabopane area?
The malls that I can tell you about are the ones that I'm out talking about. So there's a lot of developments that I unfortunately can't talk about. Can't speak about yet. Because people say, "Are you looking there? You're looking there. You're looking there."
No. Totally understood. Yeah. And I mean, some of the things are strategic places that are there. Yeah. No, fantastic. So. As a businessman, I want to ask you this question. I always ask people. We get to business and then, we think we've got it. We think we know it. And then, boy, school fees. We end up paying school fees. Can you just relate one or two areas where you've actually
got a proper lesson?
Proper hiding.
Africa did. Africa gave him a good buckslan.
Is it?
Yeah. No, it's just because it's so foreign.
Yeah,
in terms of that whole environment that you're dealing with here, you're dealing with mostly a rule book and tenants you understand and due process and everything else. Whereas in Africa, you're dealing with exchange rate fluctuations and all of that on top of systems you don't understand, legal systems, property systems that you don't understand. It was, I spent the best, 10 years, I suppose, putting schemes together, on the side of doing what we were doing here locally, but traveling a lot up into Africa, up into Kaduna, Kumasi, Lagos, East Africa as well. We were up in Luanda in Angola. In Angola.
Oh,
that was the best money we ever lost. I think that we.
Yeah, many people have got a lot of stories to tell about Angola. Yes,
we only lost a little bit of money relative to what we could have. So from my side, in terms of the stick to your knitting, I think that's what everything seemed to, but you can't parachute in from as an external and put that kind of stuff. As I said when we started this interview, retail is detail. There is so much that goes into.
I remember that retail is detail.
100%. There's so much going into making each one of these things work. They're like a human body with each organ, each retailer playing a part in making sure the body functions correctly. And listen, I'm still there. We've just got enough on our plate locally. And one of my dad's favorite things is always finish what's on your plate.
Yeah. And
we've got a lot of good retail locally. So listen, still got plans for Africa in time, but certainly that was a proper lesson. And unless you're willing to commit to something that you don't understand 100%, then don't touch it.
Even when you work with partners that are based in a different geography, just like that's rough, eh?
Well, it depends. If they're also putting in their side of the money, then their skin's in the game.
Yeah,
and I suppose that's where we went wrong. Is we bankrolled a lot
of the projects.
Yeah, a lot of it, and then you get 100% of the stress for less than 100% of the reward, basically.
Sure.
But so that's the only real big school fee. I think we, as a company, we've remained fairly conservative in everything that we've done. We don't start building a shopping center before it's leased, for argument's sake. So we lease first so we design it to the specifications. We get
of the tenants.
Yeah. So we cost all of that down to the last cent before we've raised the money we raised the money at the time. And so because we've been conservative and under the guidance of my old man, we've fortunately managed to avoid some big school fees other than Africa.
You can't buy experience, eh?
No, 100%. No, absolutely. Wisdom and experience.
Yeah. No. So one of the things that really stand out, and you and I started engaging a lot during the riots, and looking at how you took the bull by its horns and really challenged some of the thinking. And I don't see that as a school fees, though. But what are some of the key lessons that you've learned in working with communities on some of the malls that they've protected and some of the recoveries that you've had? What are some of the key things that you've learned to appreciate about your working with different ecosystems and working with different leaders?
Listen, I think the rebuild process was, I think, felt on both sides. That was the one big thing that came through with all of this was, how these communities were 3-4 months down the line, then realizing, just how urgent it was now to get these things up and running again, because the lifestyle, the functioning of those ecosystems that they were used to had now been turned on its head.
Sure.
And I don't think that we've done anything much different from the first time that we built with him.
Yeah.
We always work closely with our communities, and so I don't think that there's been any additional learnings that we've learned. We're always on a big drive to be local, to be more locally relevant and community focused. And certainly, we doubled down on that to make sure that the community was as involved as possible during the rebuilds. But it's far more fun to build something for the first time. So it's nice rolling the new schemes that we've got coming up with the various communities that we've got out there.
Fantastic. So I hear there's some exciting projects. So if you haven't gone to Jason's website or if you haven't gone to Exemplar REITail, website. Just check there some of the new developments that are coming. And if you're joining us for the first time, this is T-junction. My name is Thabo Makama, and then I'm your host. We working a lot and having conversations with leaders in different spaces. Today we're talking to Jason McCormick, who comes from Exemplar REITail, and we've had good conversation so far. It's been an hour, believe it or not. Time flies when you're having fun, right? And I think some of the things that many people ask themselves is that, you know, if I go into big organizations such as Exemplar REITail, I'll find different types of people that are there that are, you know, thinking differently. And you've touched on corporate, but as a leader, in terms of leading your organization and leading your family and like that, what is your secret formula? We always ask this question to people before we close out. What is your secret sauce? If someone has to say,
Passion,
Jason,
dude. I think
sauce?
it's passion. You know, I'm a very emotional person. I feel very deeply.
Yeah.
So I'm very driven by, that sense of, you know, commitment to a cause, and that belief that, you know, this thing is bigger than me. There's no doubt about that. And I suppose that when you feel you're part of something bigger, you're willing to, whatever it takes, you're willing to do whatever needs to be done. And never give up, never stop. And you know, I'm a perfectionist in where it matters. My wife will tell you I leave my mess on the floor. But
you're a stickler for things that matter, not so much on the other things. Yeah.
But yeah, coming back to retail is detail. You know, at the end of the day, you know, we 100% committed to what we're doing, focused on only what we do, and that is Township retail. And eventually do something for as long as we've been doing it, and it's kind of second nature. It's just what we do. I dream business, unfortunately. It follows me into my sleep. So
no, fantastic.
Yeah.
So in closing, what can you say to a budding property developer, somebody who wants to go into the industry? You've touched on a lot of things in terms of in the retail space. Retail is detail. It's a long-term game, but, you know, some serious thoughts that they need to put in before committing, because some of the people might take their life savings and might take, you know, money that they borrow.
Make sure that you can get your return upfront. So understand what your costs are and what your rental will be. Is someone going to rent at that? And is that an adequate return on the capital that I'm going to spend? You know, it takes a lot to do that old field of dreams, build it and they will come. And I think that's where we've seen many people lose their shirts. Is they've got to make sure you've got a market, make sure whoever you're servicing, do your market research, make sure that the market does exist and at the price point that makes financial sense for whatever money that you're going to have to invest. Always do your homework first. But sometimes, you know, you've got to go with your gut.
So gut plays a role. Yeah,
gut does know. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah,
you know, I when I first we won the tender to partner with Putprop and some developments and Dobsonville, the old Putco bus depot site opposite the Dobsonville Mall. And I looked at it from Google Earth and I said, I'm not, you know, there's a big mall there already, you know, I'm not so keen on it, you know, but we won that until I got onto site and you feel the energy, you just feel the vibe, you're just like, wow, there's something here.
This is what I want to do.
And that's what, for me in property, we'll never do anything without being on the ground, feeling the energy, feeling the vibe, seeing the traffic, seeing the people, getting a feel for it.
Yeah, you've been to more townships than I have. No, I'm sure you've been to more townships and rural spaces.
Listen, in the old days, you know, I started long before Google Earth. So in the old days, I used to drive. Did a lot of driving, a lot of flying, a lot of driving. Yeah.
No, fantastic. So this is Jason McCormick, and he's from Exemplar REITail. And thank you very much to all that have joined us on T-junction. My name is Thabo Makama, bringing to you a very awesome, I call him the property champion, the Township property champion. And he's doing fantastic stuff. I must tell you, he's one guy who's very responsive. He may be busy, but very responsive. And so if you find yourself working with Exemplar REITail or being a tenant and stuff like that, you would totally understand what I'm talking about. But I think, Jason, thank you very much for making time. And we always tell people this is a mini university that we're trying to, you know, impart for many of the entrepreneurs. When we start distributing the material to different people, to get to learn, to hear it, firsthand from individuals that are in the business and not someone who's coming up with a very MBA theoretic nonsense, but someone who's really, rolled their sleeves and have been in there and got, down and dirty with the business, and they understand the challenges that are there. And my challenge, to everyone who comes on is to say, you know what, where there is opportunities to keep on sharing the information with us, so we can just share with the individuals that are, following us and the individuals that are talking to us on a regular basis. But keep on doing what you're doing and building others and, building malls in townships. I mean, for me, for many days, I've seen how the impact of individuals who never had jobs because they had to take 2 taxis to town to go and work. But now a person can actually walk to the mall, which is something we never even touched. The economics and the transformation that happens in opening a retail site next to where I live is that I don't catch a taxi, but the part of my salary that comes, I can be able to grow the space I live in and be able to have a, good livelihoods. So for me, it's more than just building. It's more than property that you're providing to the people. It's hope, it's opportunity, it's economics. 100%. It's massive. You might think the portion of it, but as you say, it's bigger than you, and 100%. It's bigger than all of us. And I think if all of us start thinking differently around what we do, the type of businesses that we go into, the impact that it gives, and getting people to get to understand what is it that you can do to empower others, to grow others, to create spaces that are going to make sure that it's a legacy for next generation. Jason just showed us how he works in a company that he's been working with his dad. It's a generational thing. So as you're an entrepreneur, as you build for generations, build for legacy, make sure that what you're doing has got impact for other people. This is Thabo Makama, T-junction host, and I'm just very appreciative of the time that you've given me. You've allowed me to just impart knowledge. You've allowed Jason to also share his personal story in the business. And thank you very much. Until we meet again, goodbye.
Okay. Jeez, it went quick, huh?
Yeah. The hour goes quick. Awesome. Yeah, fantastic.
Dude, thanks very much.
I really appreciate you.
Yeah, pleasure. Thanks very much, guys.
So, thank you very much. And I'll be in contact.
Yeah, I like it.
Mr. Mapa, how are you doing? So this is one of the guys that is in the last mile.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, last mile delivery.
Oh, I like it.
In Township.
Yeah.
Township. Especially Tembisa, because you said
food is not paid.
It's not paid. Yeah. So these guys are supposed to penetrate Tembisa, or they want to penetrate Tembisa and stuff. And,